The state of everything. Matthias and Alex. Yeah.
Chicka.
Dude, that's the dream, man. What happened to the hostage situation? Did you get out of your basement bunker?
Well, you had switched it up the last podcast, so I felt like the musical room turn was me, and yeah, I had to change the scenery, man. No more bunker situation, though. I did like that bunker.
That's lovely, man. So you're in the Bostonian era now.
I
Area.
am. I'm in New England.
Wonderful. How's the vortex this week? Is it frigid out there?
Yes, it is cold, not polar vortex cold, but it's old. I'm I'm tired of it. Rode my bike to work on Monday, and it snowed like halfway through. It was basically a blizzard out of nowhere, and it was not what I signed up for. And winter is old, and I'm tired of it.
Yeah, man. You know what else is old and I'm tired of it? Michael Cohen's tears. Just crying and sobbing about his lack of a future and just his connection to basically the top tier of organized crime in the United States and potentially abroad as well. I kind of feel sorry for him. I think he's kind of like a pushover kind of guy that got involved in the wrong crowd, you know? He's just like a stupid, like, whatever guy. But I know that you probably hate his guts. But I watched a little bit of his thing yesterday, you know, his whole hearing over the House Oversight Committee. And I don't know what's happening. Is the world coming to an end? Are we reaching a new dimension of more coherent American stuff that's not corrupt, or is it just the beginning of the corruption?
I think in a lot of ways the story is well, story's already out there quite a bit. He's just filling in some gaps and telling a pretty damning story, I think. He has no reason to lie now, although some people don't believe that he's telling the full truth when it comes to Russian collusion and whatnot. He said something like, he didn't think that there was any collusion, but he had his suspicions or whatnot. So, but yeah, I thought he came across as pretty persuasive, and I thought the Republicans looked like idiots. Jim Jordan looked like an asshole, like he always does.
Is the other dude a racist, Meadows?
For bringing trying to bring a token black person on and say Trump isn't racist because somebody in government is black and works for him.
Very racist trope. Like that's something that a racist
yeah.
would do to make it seem like you're not racist.
Yeah, and it was. Ilhan Omar called him out for it. He was like all pissed about it. You see those videos circulating about, how he was talking about like in 2012 we're gonna win and send Obama back to Kenya or wherever it is he's from.
Where was that? What year?
Mark Meadows was saying that when he was running for re-election or something.
Yeah, he's probably a piece of shit, just like the rest of them, right?
Well, I think it's just kind of funny. He's like, you go far back enough, you can find a video for everything. But yeah, I think it's a trope. This pulled a stunt to, Michael Cohen's response was perfect. He was like, yeah, my parents are Holocaust survivors, and I still work for him. Like, yeah. So, do you disagree, or are you largely?
I don't know, man. I just want to know what's going on with Russia because I feel like they're sketchy, but like we don't know the truth yet. So I guess just want a little, just burst right into that because that's the news Obviously, there's a lot of foreign policy stuff going on right now, but because of the time change, unfortunately, we have a bit of a time change here because of your relocation, which I'm not very stoked about because I'm not in my normal headspace that I'm in for this show. And it's definitely something that's screwing up with my brain. My brain is mashed, and I have this tea. And I just want to shout out this quote because this goes out to Michael Cohen. Win as though you were used to it and lose as if you liked it. So that's to Michael Cohen, my boy. That's a quote from Isabella Stewart Gardner. This is from the Gardner Museum in Boston. So this is a shout out to Boston. I don't know if you've been there. You should go. It's a great, very eclectic, weird house that this art collector, Isabella Gardner, Stewart Gardner, she basically was an art collector and did some cool stuff. So long story short, there's a bit of a double entendre there, a little shout out to Boston and a little bit of a tea time thing because it's tea time out here. It's not beer time yet. So I haven't had a beer yet. So I'm not drinking that. I'm drinking some green tea. So what are you drinking, Matthias?
Well, I'm trying to keep tradition alive here. I'm drinking the Ghost Hammer IPA, Stone IPA. Went on a little Costco spree with my parents before I left. And
that's cool.
Drove this beer across country with me. And I did not do it for any purpose, but Ghost Hammer, I don't know, the House Oversight Committee dropped the hammer today, and so that's why I'm drinking this beer. Yeah, man, I guess what we're doing it are we doing it 2 hours earlier now? Like,
yeah, man, it's all screwed up. I didn't even eat yet. Like, this is not good. But to our listeners out there, I just want to make sure that we're, giving you the best content that we can give you, even though, Matthias screwed up the timing for this on my end by moving to a cooler, better city than Chicago. I'm still here, and I'm doing what I can to broadcast these ideas out to y'all. You know what I mean?
Well, the internet should be better, so we should have that, and maybe the audio quality will be better. So to our listeners, we have that going for us now.
Good. That's amazing. Yeah. So, man, the state of everything. I guess what's the name of the game right now? Chaos, fake news, truth, hoaxes. How do we? I was looking at this article about millennial burnout because I'm feeling a little bit burned out. I'm a little tired. And it says, how does it feel to have a millennial burnout when there's too much stuff going on at all times? And there's this article here. It's on the BBC. It says it's not just another typical snowflake issue. We'll post a link for all of our lovely listeners. It says this, 74% of millennials are stressed. There's a burnout state of chronic stress that leads to physical and emotional exhaustion. And we're on hyper alert because we have so much going on at all times. We're attached to technology. I'm not really doing a good job of summarizing this article, but I think the idea is interesting of people think of millennials as the, kind of a privileged, annoying, complaining, safe space, triggering type of people. But I actually just did a workshop about millennial relations, millennials and boomers in the workplace out in Dallas, Farmers Branch, Texas. And I thought it was interesting. I think a lot of the preconceptions or the biases about millennials aren't true. I think ultimately people are people, but I do think that there is something to be said about this kind of idea of a millennial burnout in the way that other previous generations might not have experienced, just with our connection and our attachment to technology. For example, I had to buy these blue light blockers for my eyesight so I don't go blind by 40 by looking at a screen all day. $18.99 on Amazon. I don't know the brand, but they're great. Not going to give you any special codes because, our sponsors aren't really looking into doing that yet, but they will eventually on this show. So I just want to, hear your perspective, Matthias. I mean, you're out there working the big, you're basically an elitist in Boston working big time jobs, and you're busy. And what do we do? What do people our age? How do we combat this very real this burnout that we're experiencing.
Well, I'm kind of curious as to like what some of, I mean, can you go into at all? Like what some of this like stuff that you discussed, like, I mean, some of the feedback or any of the points that like resonated with the audiences that you talked to, or, I mean, I think that some of the stuff that you were dealing with is, or it sounds like from my vantage point that, I don't know, I feel like you can extrapolate that onto society. I mean, it's just the workplace is one element of it. Sounds like, I don't know, there's intergenerational differences. There always are. Every time, you know, there's disagreements between generations or visions of the future. But I mean, I don't know, like, is it more pronounced nowadays? I mean, or what? How what's the situation with that from, or that
Well,
you
you
guys
know,
talk?
the interesting thing we're going through right now is for the first time ever, we have 5 generations in the workforce. And so people have to understand, or people have to realize or figure out how they're going to work with each other. So a lot of the problems that, you know, you would think are millennial problems, they're actually problems that go across all generations. They're basically just problems that they might have started out as unique to the millennial generation in the workforce, but now, you know, with this idea of like taking home your work and being attached to, you know, your work email, and you're answering emails on the weekends, you know, how much of your work do you bring home? Do you have a nice work-life balance, flexibility, and all that? You know, there's cool aspects of being a millennial and like having that kind of job freedom, but at the same time, I mean, this is affecting everybody. Where are the lines, right? Where is the, you know, where is the burnout, and where is the you know, how does productivity benefit us and make us, you know, what do we do for productivity that isn't like damaging to our souls, like, you know, over a long period of time? So I guess health is just something that, you know, it's interesting, man. Yeah, like balancing the social time and like the internet time and like the real people time and the like family time, and have, you know, if you're going to go date, I don't know if you do that anymore, but like that's just something that takes up time and energy. And I mean, I guess my point is, I'm rambling, but I think you know, we're in this connected 24/7 world now where the news cycle is constant and our attention spans are like messed up kind of. And I guess this goes along with the accelerationist argument we were talking about a couple weeks ago as well. Yeah, how do we, I guess, balance? How do we achieve balance in 2019, Matthias?
Well, I'm, who knows? I'm, I think less time on the phone is always good. I read a interesting article in the New Yorker the other day on my commute, because now I have to do that. But it was all about how he was relating a story maybe from his great grandma or aunt or somebody, and just how she was born in the late 1800s. And she mentioned something how she had no problem adjusting to all the new inventions and everything that appeared, the car, the telephone. She just missed the horses. And his point, you know, he said he related some story about himself with his daughter or somebody else, and how they were overlooking a bridge, or from a bridge overlooking a bunch of trains. And finally, you know, she asked him, like, what are you waiting for? And he was like, I'm just waiting for a steam engine or a steam train or something. It's like those are long gone. His whole point was, you know, he's nearing the end of his life, and he's just a little concerned in the future of humanity, but nonetheless, he does retain quite a bit of optimism. You know, he's concerned about what technology is doing and our relationship to technology and how it's changing us. And he tells a story of how he was at a conference, and there was this one speaker there who was saying that, like, kind of bragging about how his preteen daughter or something spent hours on end on the internet, and how, you know, she's the first ever to have access to an endless supply of information, and, you know, how revolutionary this is and whatever. And the guy was like, well, has she read, and I forget the book, but it was, it's some classic. I guess I'm guilty of this as well. I'm illiterate, but, and the guy said no, his daughter hadn't read that. And he was like, well, there's a difference between information and knowledge. And how are people supposed to grow up learning about what it means to be human? We've, for countless generations, we've told our youth certain stories, and, it's about what it means to be a human and a good member of society or whatever, have you, religion and anything. And, that's changing. It's very different. What people are being exposed to. And I'll close up by saying that, one of the achievements of our advanced civilization should be solitude and time off and the ability to think for yourself. Like these should be advantages that, might not have always been around in earlier societies or less advanced ones. And yet we're losing that, or people don't realize that, the value of it or whatnot. So I thought that was an interesting point of view. I largely agreed with it across the board.
This is, I guess, kind of off topic, but it's still related. I saw this, I forget who it was. It might have been Tim Pool or some online independent video YouTube journalist who said something about how, like, a lot of these Democratic candidates right now are like, what do people actually think, right? What do people actually feel? I think a lot of these politicians, they might be looking at social media as like a way to determine what the dialogue is or how people genuinely feel about issues. But social media is inherently, the algorithms and the way it's set up and the way it's a liking kind of hierarchy, it's set up so the loudest voices or like the craziest or the most absurd or maybe even the most extreme viewpoints are projected. And like people are like, wow, like this is what the dialogue is, because this is what news organizations are desperate for clicks now. And if you're going to have, like when Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was being broadcast during Christmas, and then you have some people on Twitter, maybe like even 3 or 4 or 5, saying how it's like, either racist or it's, it's promoting bully culture, or it's like a hashtag Me Too kind of thing. Even if a couple people say that and it gains traction, that becomes the dialogue. And this is very much what created Trump as well, where he would say things, he would start at this is your Overton window thing. He would start at something insane and would work it back in order for it to make sense in the dialogue. And I think that's going on. I'm working my way around this long-winded kind of point. But my point is, the internet has made a lot more real in the world, right? It's like opened up reality to a lot of people. But it's also this weird like filter where maybe this isn't what people think. Like maybe most people don't agree with like the 4 or 5 loudest people on Twitter that are projecting their voices and they're getting traction, and people are maybe now like, crafting policy based on those little bits of like, oh, this is the way we got to go now because this is what it seems like liberals want, or this is what it seems like conservatives want. Maybe most people, like the average person, isn't tweeting crazy stuff on Twitter, right? But maybe the craziest voices are the ones that gain traction, and now we get drifted into this weird extremist kind of reality where that's not where people stand. Maybe everybody is a moderate to for the most part, but all we get fed is like everybody's a radical, or everybody's like very extreme or far left or far right. And I don't know what you can grab onto that if you anything you thought was interesting, or move on to the next topic. But that's something that I've been kind of contemplating, recently.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're making like policy is driven by more than just what's happening on Twitter. I mean, polling has become much more advanced and whatnot. these years. But I mean, I think I don't know. I think that like the algorithms, I mean, in just human nature in general, perhaps, like that's what the more extreme things, sensational or whatever, gets passed around and travels faster than other ones. But I don't know. I don't think that by and large it's, I mean, I get that there's a lot of echo chambers out there. YouTube recommends, crazier videos, and before you know it, you're in like conspiracy theory territory, one thing after the next. And the same thing happens probably on Twitter with who you like. It recommends other people that are like that. And I mean, I absolutely agree that that is a challenge, that it would be much cooler if these platforms were actually able to create communities, better communities, instead of just like-minded. Like if it somehow, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's very cynical of me to say that it doesn't lead to improved human behavior. I'm sure there are examples of, there's plenty of examples of social media being good and doing good things. But I just think that by and large, if you look at the macro level, there's much more kind of, stovepiping or just echo chambers. Then people are caught in these echo chambers, and I mean, more than they ever were before. I think people's types of communication has changed. People used to interact with people more in their neighborhood, and maybe that doesn't happen as much anymore. But I don't know. I mean, I don't see like I think that there are much more. There are plenty of explanations out there for the polarization and the extremes that prevent or that are driving people apart. There's less of a middle ground between the left and the right. But I think I don't think that that's really blamed on the left. I don't know if that's blamed on the right as much. I think that there's just plenty of explanations for it in general. But
Is one of the things we're moving towards, I just kind of thought of this as you were saying all that. Do you think one of our biggest divisions going forward, or even right now, is that people are either voting with their, like basically you're voting in either for a financial reason or for a moral reason? Like, what's going to take precedence, or does one have to? I think someone like you would probably argue that we need to look at both. But I think that what I see is a lot of people on the right vote purely for financial reasons. Like they vote with their wallets. They don't want to spend too much because they don't want to overpay for things that they might not get good quality things for. And that often comes across as selfish or bigoted or racist or anti-immigrant or whatever. You have people on the left that are not voting with their wallets as much because a lot of these people already are privileged and have money and come from middle-class backgrounds and are pretty much, they have a little bit more room to breathe, perhaps, some people. And so they do vote with this moral kind of sensibility where it's like, of course we need to take as many people in as we can. We need to look after everybody. Let's have universal health care. Let's even look at universal basic income. Let's take care of everyone, and let's have the wealthiest people pay their fair share. That's a bit of what the Bernie Sanders kind of platform is, in terms of just, that's how we pay for these things, by taxing the very top of the top in order to have a better life for everybody. But that is inherently a moral issue. Those things are more expensive, a lot of these liberal programs. So is that something that you see is happening? Is it happening now? Is that one of the biggest divisions that we're dealing with?
I think the parties are diverse. You at the top, on the right, you've got, you've got fiscal conservatives, you've got social conservatives too, that are there for religious reasons, and I mean, American politics, that when everybody gets wedged or shoved into one of two parties, you have these really odd coalitions of various interests that somehow like all get swooped in under each umbrella. But I think traditionally the Democrats used to be the party of the working class. It used to be for they used to have, you talk about like people who don't have money and like financially being interested in the conservative or party. I think that for many years there, that's what the Democrats were. They were blue collar unions, and then they basically dropped all that in the 90s. And now they're just about like helping oppress people based on mostly identity politics, and they've lost the ability to, I think, communicate with working families for the most part, or have the message resonate. That said, the only reason I say that is because the country is still mostly conservative. I feel like on the whole, it's more conservative than it is liberal. So that's what I mean. And they haven't really persuaded the majority of the people, their message, middle America. They're always fighting for the suburbs. Democrats have urban areas and they fight for the suburbs, but that said, they are right when it comes to healthcare, and I think that they are on the right side of actually trying to fix it, which I don't think can be said for Republicans. So it's hard, man. There's always there's a lot of issues. There's two sides to every story, I guess, but multiple perspectives.
So part of this as well. Do we have a guest over there? Is there
Not today. Maybe next time.
Next time. Possibly next time. State of Everything is welcome to diverse and inclusive perspectives.
Trying to get Alex to come on too.
Great. Yeah. Well, he's here. I'm talking. So I guess one of these things about this divide as well is I watched Bill Maher's New Rules last week. I watched it last night, but it aired last Friday, and he had this really it was an angry. I don't know. I think he's kind of losing it. First of all, I'm just gonna critique his show really fast. They're all old white baby boomers, man. And I'm sorry. If we're gonna talk about being progressive and ushering in a new future, that's not the right move. If you have 5 guests and they're all just old people, I'm not an ageist. I was watching it and I was just thinking I don't care about what some of these people have to say. Bring in diverse perspectives. Actually, if you're going to be the party of diversity, be diverse. God damn it! What are you doing? And so he was a little bit agitated or angry the whole episode, and he finished with this new rule that was highlighting this this division between left and right. And he basically said, "quote The flyover states have become the passed over states. That's why red state voters are so pissed off. They don't hate us. They want to be us. They want to go to the party." He said things like, they have, we have Chef Wolfgang Puck. They have Chef Boyardee. And he was saying all these really bad kind of not even a hot take about all these things that differentiate, how all these MAGA types are all just left in the dark, and everybody from a red state is basically a hick and is behind. Everybody wants to be in the blue states. That's actually not happening. I have a thing on a Newsweek opinion article. It says Bill Maher thinks the South envies the blue states. Actually, it's the other way around. It says Maher's rant was proof that he needs to get out more often and travel the country, or at least have someone on his staff read the paper now and then. People are flocking from states like California and moving to Texas. And there are actual statistics here that show that. And so I just think it's a bit of where is the party? Like, is California like the best place to live? I don't think so. I mean, I can't afford it here. I don't want to live here. I hate the traffic. I hate that it's overly priced. It's overly taxed, and we're not really it's a good lifestyle, I suppose. It's nice that the weather is nice, but I'd be very careful with saying it's just like the Hillary Clinton, like half the countries are deplorable. Like you got to be careful with that terminology because it's simply not true. I was just in Texas. It's incredibly diverse. Like Dallas is amazing. Like Austin is way more community focused and more friendly than LA. And so I don't know if I buy this whole thing where the red states are all, just completely in the dark ages just because, you think their politics are behind. That's not even necessarily true. A lot of these states are purple states too.
Yeah. I think you're right. I don't know. I think it sounded ill-conceived. And like he has a bunch of staffers who are all comedians, who went to elite comedy schools in New York or somewhere else. And I mean, I don't know. That's like a simplification on my part. But I do think that it reflected a primarily urban viewpoint that did sound pretty detached from what I think life is probably like in these places, which just probably couldn't care less about what the hell's going on in New York or anywhere else. I think plenty of people don't give a shit about what's going on, and they're happy that way as long as they have. I think that is as long as they can support themselves and have a decent expectation for their future and their offspring's future. The next generation. I think they're totally fine, and to be left alone and to have their own, habits and customs and culture. I mean, we're all American to a certain extent, but life is definitely different in rural areas. And I think that that's pretty ridiculous to say that the reason that these people are voting for Trump is just because they want to be New York City. What kind of boneheaded comment is that?
Red states don't want to be blue states. They're happy that they're red states. And a lot of people from blue states are moving to red states and turning them blue. And then they have a lot of the problems that I'm not saying that this is, there's a right way or a wrong way. I'm saying that this idea that Bill Maher is so in touch by living in fucking Bel Air or wherever he lives, and he gets Ubered to his studio and he talks like a little I look at my hair and I like, oh my God, I'm a progressive and look, I'm hip and I'm cool. And dude, you're not. Like, I like Bill Maher and I like his show. I think it's an important show, but he's incredibly out of touch. And I don't want to just make it look like I'm just like red pilling and realizing all this for the first time. Like I've always like that. That's the whole generational thing. I like different perspectives. We need boomer perspectives of where things are going. But if he's only going to have old folks on his show and he's going to just shit on half the country and say they all want to be us, it doesn't sound like it. You sound like the angry prick. Like he sounds like the one that I don't want to be associated with in that argument, and which is sad because it's not a hard argument to say like we should be for innovation and we should be for liberal values. But I'm starting to realize, and this is where I'm getting to with the Democratic Party. This is the big split that happened in 2016 that wasn't fully realized because the election was rigged by the DNC. This very real corporate Democrat and this grassroots Democrat. I'm gonna use those as the two wings of the Democratic Party that I see as really veering off in different directions. And the corporate Democrats have often been the moderate ones, so that makes it sound like it's okay because centrism is usually a positive thing. But I'm going to argue that they're not moderate at all. These are the corporate Democrats, the Hillary Clintons, the Kamala Harrises, possibly like the Cory Bookers, maybe even your Amy Klobuchar. I think she's probably in that too. And are we going to veer more into that, or are we going to veer more into the grassroots, the Warrens, the Bernies, the Gabbards? Probably more than that, but those are the ones that are running for president. I would put AOC possibly, definitely in the grassroots bit too. She's not corporate. So that's where I'm seeing this division playing out. And it's getting wider and wider, which I think is a good thing because, and then you have people like Bill Maher who say, oh, you can't criticize Democrats. Like, we're supposed to come together. No, this is why we have primaries. We have this whole process so we can criticize the people whose values don't align with ours.
Yeah. When it comes time to the general election, that's probably a different story.
Not there yet. We're a long way away from that. So we can parse and pick apart all the bullshit from every single one of these people and every single person that wants to, say that they have progressive or liberal values and believe in a social democracy.
Yeah. I mean, but this is nothing new. This is in both sides of the party. I mean, Donald Trump was the grassroots of the right that unseated the establishment, corporate, Jeb Bushes and Kasich and, whatever else. So, again, none of this is new, and it happens on both sides of the party, and it's a feature of American politics. And I'm reading Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail, which is probably the best, I think. I mean, you talk about how do you stay sane in 2019. I think everybody should read that book. It's exactly it is the most relevant book, I think, politically for what we're going through. I think there's going to be a lot of comparisons. Nixon in office. I mean, compared 1968, how shitty of a year 1968 was. That's 2016 in some ways. Nixon was a better president, hell of a better president than Trump was. But he was reviled by tons of Americans. I mean, compare Richard Nixon to Bobby Kennedy. There's a whole group of people. Imagine how depressed people felt. This 1968 was the end. Was the end of an era. That's when it all came, reality came crashing down on a whole bunch of people. And I think a lot of people got jaded about politics real quick. Nixon won, and then this whole 1972 campaign, Hunter S. Thompson's talking about like all the primary and how George McGovern is basically who you're talking about is like a grassroots. He's the closest to the Bobby Kennedys of the Kennedy coalition, the machine or whatever. And Hubert Humphrey, he calls him the Hube, which is great. But he goes on some hilarious tirades about Hubert Humphrey and how he's this establishment person. If Hubert Humphrey gets renominated again in 1972, this country's going to be absolutely lost, and Nixon's going to tear him a new asshole. So I think that everyone needs to just chill the fuck out. I really do. I think everyone in this country needs to just relax a little bit. The stakes are high, but I think this country is acting like what we're going through is the first time this country has dealt with crisis. And yes, it's true that this is the first time that we likely have an agent of a foreign hostile power in the office of the presidency. And that is a very serious, rather record-breaking, historical factor there in United States history. But, this division that we're experiencing and, technology, and it's just like, I think that, people just are so riled up in it, and it can just get really crazy. And it's like I think that there's examples in our past that we can look to find solace and not lose our minds. Not that they're like totally equivalent and there's nothing to worry about, but I think it moderates your passions a little bit.
I mean, it's one of those things where you need to look at the past as like a beacon of sorts, of what to avoid and what to go more into. But I think, like I said this before, like I think the issues of the future are so radical and they're going to be so different than anything that's ever happened before. You have to look at history and take that, but you also have to be incredibly creative and innovative like we've never had to be before. Like you look, the whole trope on the right is like, oh, socialism will never work in this country because look at the history, like it's never worked, right? It's an incredibly simplistic take, and it's not really well thought out, and it's not really taking into consideration a social democracy. I think I get so sick of all these people, Bernie and AOC and all these people that always keep using the socialist word. It's like saying you're a nationalist now. Just don't say it anymore, because you might have good intentions, but you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. Shut the hell up about it. Say social democrat. You believe in a social democracy, because then there's nothing you can pick apart that's bad about that. It's what we already have. We're already taxed for things like infrastructure and for the police and for the fire department. It's already socialist, but we're not going to be a socialist country, though. There's socialist aspects to what we have. So let's call it a social democracy. Let's call it what it is. Let's call it that. So we can move forward with, yes, certain aspects of socialism can work, and they will work in the future. And it's perhaps the only way to really ensure how things are going to work in the future. I mean, people are shitting on this Andrew Yang guy who's running for the Democratic nomination. Doesn't get a lot of press because he's just an entrepreneur guy. But he's the big guy that's running on this UBI, this universal basic income thing. And a lot of people think it's ridiculous to give everybody $1,000 a month, especially the rich or people who don't need it. But it's this idea of this it's not communism and socialism, but it's creating a welfare state that is it gives you the net that will lead everyone to not be basically for society. I'm not arguing for it because I don't know enough about universal basic income, but I'm saying the argument that at least to have the conversation is a welcome one, because you have people like Elon Musk, and there's other people in the tech industry as well that I've seen that'll say, just wait, like 7 to 10 years, just wait it out, let's see what will happen. Then it's gonna, like, the possibilities of where we can go and where blue collar workers can go are potentially catastrophic for the entire system of capitalism and for everybody. And when you have automation and we have immigration and you have terrorism and you have these networks and all this nonsense going on, you have to have ways to combat it. And a lot of that is going to be radical. That sounds insane to someone who's just like, oh, I'm just a guy with put my pants on, one leg at a time. I'm a capitalist, like buy up by your bootstraps kind of guy. Like, dude, that worked in the 50s. But like, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that your vision of like an Eisenhower 50s or, whatever is going to be realistic going forward.
Yeah, I think that a couple different things. I think this is 2020 is not the election to litigate universal basic income. It's
more ideas. Let's have more ideas, man. Why not?
More ideas, but my God, I just think that should not be a main driver of who Democrats want in this election. Like, there is just so many other things that are priorities before that. It's okay to talk about, and sure, like, we'll discuss it, but like, it should not at this point in time be either what sets one candidate apart from another or whatever. It's just not. I mean, I think if Andrew Yang or whatever his name is, like, if that's his primary thing that he's running for, I think he's hopeless in the general election. So
yeah, but in 10 years though, 10 years down the line, we might look at that kind of like candidacy and say, look, he had certain ideas that we need to implement. I'm talking big picture. I'm not talking about, once again, this is bigger than Trump. A lot of these liberals and Democrats, people like you, think that everything in the whole world is Trump forever. And I understand the need or the realization that, things are urgent and we need to take action, and, democracy is at stake. But I'm talking about a future for everybody too, 10, 20, 30 years down the line, when, things are even bigger.
No, and I understand. I had a good discussion with last night about how warnings for Chinese economy, and how there's like municipalities out there that are just not paying their debts, and certain funds are starting to fall apart, and people are losing money, and just the prevalence of these articles seems to be increasing. These been around for years, but I think that there might be a general increase in some of the scope and whatever these articles, the fear of these ghost cities in China, and unsustainable debt and whatever. And if that drives the next, if that happens, the Chinese economy crashes, and God help us. That might be the next. That might be the next thing that tanks. That adversely affects the American economy. And I think we've got a real shitstorm on our hands. I mean, people are scared of socialism now. I think that be prepared when the next financial crisis or economic downturn, and all the income inequality that people talk about now. The economy is been growing. I mean, economy is strong right now, and there's all this outrage and
thanks to God Emperor Daddy Trump.
Well, imagine if it goes south, how pissed off people are going to be. Imagine Occupy Wall Street, 2.0. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that that's good or that we want socialism to come about. I think that's stupid. There's a teacher, some college professors making rounds about a book about women had better sex under socialism. I think, because all of those women were honest in their answers of their surveys when they were asked about how's your sex life. I mean, if you say, that's the whole thing. If you go against the regime, you're screwed. I mean, that's a very surface level analysis of that, and I have not read that book, but I think it's just generally talk about idealize socialism as if we should be going and steering towards that. I mean, that's not what America is, as far as I know. America is capitalist, but America also has a good safety net. It should have a good safety net, one that's not falling apart and ineffective. And you're right, it does. That's one of FDR's what FDR started. Well, maybe Teddy Roosevelt started.
Teddy Roosevelt, FDR, Bernie Sanders. There is a connection.
No, yeah, there's a connection, but
one leads to another, and that's where we're at now. And people you have to understand that that's where the Democratic Party is going. This kind of mentality, this progressive wing that is saying, we are anti-establishment. We are for protecting the rights of everyone. We're for human rights. We're for people having health care and education that's affordable. He's talking about things like debt, college debt, things that the Republicans won't even mention. And frankly, a lot of these corporate Democrats either, they're just jumping on because that is what people really feel. And they don't really know. They're out of touch. The Mahers of the world that are in the political sphere are a little bit out of touch, and they're just they don't really know what the future is because they're not the future. They're the past. We've looked to the future, and someone like Bernie Sanders, even though he's an old man, he's still the future because his ideas are radical enough where it's different from like a Joe Biden. Joe Biden would be like a corporate Obama type, which is fine to a lot of people, but I see it as more of the same when we need to have a more radical kind of push towards looking after a sustainable future.
Yeah, I agree with you that there needs to be a push, for change and whatnot. I guess and you're probably going to say I'm this like Russia hawk that's caught in 2016, but I just am not I think a lot of some of the things that Bernie specifically has done make him an easy target for Trump if it were the two of them in a general election. I think that he turned off a lot of people in 2016, the way that he blamed Hillary for basically something like he failed to acknowledge the fact that he benefited from Russian, bots online, like trying to help him out. Like he refused to acknowledge that, or did it super late. And
it's not collusion, though.
It's not collusion. It's just
there's no control.
No, but just acknowledge it. Like that. Why would? And the question is, why would you not acknowledge it? Like, if it's a fact, just fucking acknowledge it. Like, you got help from the Russians, and it's not like Hillary benefit. I forget what he said about Hillary.
She got help from Goldman Sachs.
Okay, there is a difference. A foreign power, yes.
And evil people in our own country.
There are, but come on, we're all Americans here. Like, just own up to the fact of what reality, happened. I mean, and also his advisor, so his campaign manager, I don't know if you might look up his whatever it was, he just quit or whatever. And it's like this guy, why did he just quit? Just now. Where has he been for the past 3 years? He was I think, wasn't he? Didn't he work for some Ukrainian oligarch himself or something? Bernie Sanders. Jeff Weaver. He's got some, or maybe he was him and Paul Manafort, I think.
He's like a record store owner.
Isn't there some? I can look it up. We'll post a link in the comments. But I'm telling you, there's some weird shady connections with Jeff Weaver and Paul Manafort in Ukraine. I'm not lying about that.
Of course there is. Of course there is.
Well, there is. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not me, man. I mean, it's like he just quit. Everybody who was associated with 2016, Jeff Weaver and somebody else, he was on for 2020, and now he just quit. They all did. So, I mean, what am I supposed to believe? I don't know.
The argument that he's an old guy and that we need to move forward, okay, then have everybody quit then.
Well,
let's move forward. Have different people.
I'm not an ageist either, but he had his time last year. Last year was probably his best shot. And I don't know. I'm kind of ready for somebody new. Does that make me a terrible person?
He is new. He's someone new.
He's old though. He's been around. Last year or last election cycle was kind of his best shot, and he didn't convince the country that he could do it last time, and that I think it would have been his best shot. It was a small field, and it was just him and literally the embodiment of the establishment, and he lost. So
and he nearly raised as much money, nearly had as many superdelegates, and it was rigged from the DNC. It's actually proven that the DNC pushed for Hillary, which is true. So I mean, he did better than anyone could imagine, and now he's got the swath of the left wing support now. And he's still someone new. He's an independent from Vermont, dude. He's not like this. He is someone new. He got close enough in 2016 where he got pushed out by the establishment. Now he has a chance to be the biggest force on the left. And I think it's a great thing that he's in the race.
I also, and you're going to think this is ridiculous, but he was unable to say whether or not he was unable to say that he supported Juan Guaido in Venezuela. And it's ridiculous. Venezuela, let's care more about the United States. I get that. But, that is falling into, if it were between him and Trump, he wants America to be socialist. He can't even say that Maduro, he still wants to support Maduro. And it's that's the easiest argument ever, man. Why can't you just say, Maduro should leave? It's an illegitimate situation. It's illegitimate. Open up your freaking eyes. What is so hard about doing that? I mean, it's that's what's inexplicable and frustrates me. It's what is so, yeah, he's an independent and he's got to be different from the Democrats or whatever, but it's like, dude, why?
Well, we'll see. It's going to be a fascinating campaign. Like I said, I think it's good to have his voice in there because he has huge, massive amount of support. He's getting a lot of money, and non-super PAC donations, all small donors, which is great. So I think he has a lot of the same worldview as people like us in our particular wing of the Democratic Party. Maybe my wing, maybe it's not your wing. I don't know, but I think it's a good thing that we need his voice. And I don't know if he's the best candidate, but at this point he's up there in terms of who is running and what he actually stands for. Not what he just says that he stands for, but his actions might be very different. Like, I don't know, someone sketchier, but we'll see how it goes. I think it's good. I mean, it's still the beginning. It's early days, but
very early.
Yeah, it's too early. But this is the thing, though. We have to talk about this stuff because it's pertinent. It's going to keep being pertinent. So
I've got an update on Chicago politics.
Hear it.
Chicago, whatever ward. So if you remember, one alderman wore a wire for years or something, 2 years, to get this other alderman, Ed Burke. He's under indictment, got a couple different trials going on, and or not trials yet. I don't know what the situation. He's under a couple different indictments. And he won re-election to this ward. So, that one just, I guess he's got a big Mexican population in his ward, and there were 2 Mexicans running, so they split the vote. And so he just swooped up and it's like the embodiment of everything. Him being reelected is just the stupidest thing ever. Anyway, a Daily got 3rd place. I don't know if you remember the Dailies. They're Democratic machine. We've already had 2 Dailies who have been mayor of Chicago for I don't know how many decades. I don't know, it all adds up. But he somehow got 3rd. And he ended up dropping out and immediately went back to work for his hedge fund. Just amazing. The Chicago Tribune endorsed him for mayor, which is just like, oh my God. So there's going to be a runoff between, establishment hack who's not going to make anything better, and then a reformer who actually won. So we'll see if she wins the general. But yeah, it's, Chicago having their mayoral elections in February so that as few people as possible vote.
American democracy working well in the state of Illinois.
Illinois is so screwed, and I'm going to miss keeping track of it on PBS every night. I'll miss it.
This has been your Chicago Corner with Mishago, Colino, Illinois. All right, so I have, just to close out tonight, a little poem here from this book. It's Poemas y Prosa Generacional. It's by my former host family in Nicaragua. They all wrote this. Aren't they lovely? I hope they're doing well. Just shout out to them because they're Nicaragua is still experiencing some pretty gnarly stuff. One of my coworkers, I used to work in Nicaragua for all of our listeners down there. One of my coworkers, I just saw her actually in Austin, Texas, which is super random, but she amidst the political situation, she just told her mom, she joked to her mom that she was going to move to America. And her mom was like, all right, do it. And so she just kind of made the jump and has been living here for 2 months. And yeah, shout out to Alejandra Amador. living the American dream with a Nicaraguan host family in the Round Rock neighborhood of Texas. So yeah, just a little Nicaragua update there. I don't know. It's still kind of a gnarly situation, but I'm just going to read a quick little poem.
You're going to have, you should, we should have a topic on Nicaragua. You can educate us.
Yeah, let's do it.
What's going on?
All right. So this poem is called Gringolandia. A José Luis Reina Palazón. Este país opulento, José Luis, tiene muchas cosas buenas. Lo malo es la ambición desmedida y la falta de humanidad, el exceso de codicia y la ausencia absoluta de solidaridad humana de los grandes centros de interés que gobiernan a este pueblo de los Estados Unidos de América, lleno de gentes, por lo demás, noble, serena, sana, trabajadora y buena. That was Gringolandia, Jose Luis Reina Palazón. I'll have a translation in the comment section.
I only got not enough of that. My Spanish is brutal.
Dude, my Spanish, obviously, like my accent is like the best. So if you didn't catch that, then you just don't know the language. So
pero voy voy a decir hola a Carmen. Si Carmen escucha este podcast.
Hey, viva España.
Sí, Sevilla. Vamos Sevilla.
Vamos mi Sevilla. Está bien, ok, no pasa nada. Órale. Próxima después podcast.
Next. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego. Es la estada de everything.
Sí.
Bien. Con todo. Todo el mundo.
Keeps turning.
Sí, señor. Ok. Hasta luego.